It's been a long time, and a lot of you have waited very patiently for this, but this was by far the most brutal smackdown for this game I've had to go through. These moons were some of the hardest challenges ever, and words cannot truly express the challenge that lies ahead, so I think we need to just get right into it. Let's go ahead and dump these moons to see we have 623 total. Then we can arrive in the Luncheon Kingdom ready to keep going. At first, I wanted to start by getting the purple coins above all of the lava. It seemed like using a lava bubble would be the ideal method for that, so I got in one, and after doing all this, I thought I'd use the cannon and launch over this wall. But I was taken by surprise and went way further than I expected. It turns out I got flung all the way to the painting island to light the torch all the way up there, now looking like it spawns a moon. Oh, I get it. These sons of guns actually forced you to do brunchin. I didn't think this is what I was going to be starting with here, but I guess I'm doing it. Brunchin is a trick jump that gets you from up here down to the mainland. It would allow us to reach the kingdom early. Get it? Early luncheon, hence the name. Anyway, the only way to make this jump is with a roll cancel, and you gotta get the angle just right to vector towards the mainland, and get just enough room to cap dive over. Now, the thing is, I have done this jump a total of 1 time before, and it was about 3 years ago for one of my very old videos. Back then, it took about an hour and a half before I got it. I was hoping I could use the experience I've got since then to get it faster, so I kept grinding it out, trying to figure out the right setup and right angle to go, and I'll tell you this, I did not suffer the same fate as last time, because it took even longer. Yeah, this trick is so precise, and I am so bad at roll cancels that this single moon took multiple hours to get. It was quite a journey to go through. Also, it takes forever, because every time you mess up, you gotta jump back around to capture the lava bubble, get in, blast off with the cannon, and watch the cutscene of the moon spawning, just to set up again and try the jump. This means I get 1 attempt like every minute, so no wonder it took forever. I was exhausted having to do this so many times, and there were several attempts where I got really close, but finally, I did see just what I was looking for. Oh, let's go. No way. I am so tired. That took forever to get, but we finally got it. Let's go. We're on the island to break the moon rock, and this is where I would say we're officially starting. And now I thought I'd go around and do what I was planning to do originally and collect the purple coins around the lava, which I did, and in the middle of that, I found another moon hiding under the building in the corner being all sneaky. After everything around there was finally taken care of, I hopped into my first sub-area of this visit. I figured, no way this will be too bad, right? No. Well, let's see what we have here. It's the Lava Island sub-area, and there's no bubbles to capture. Well, at least there's a life up heart on the top of here to help us out. But even with that, it was difficult to find the route you had to take. After a couple tries, though, I was able to go where I needed to go and bounce my way across the lava, up the steps, and hop up to the platform for the secret moon. So that's 1 down, but now we have to clear this gap without the cannon. I had no idea what I was doing at this point. I tried vaulting around the whole structure multiple times, and I tried going over, but nothing. There was no way you could get enough distance. I was stumped. I had to find out what sorcery you had to use for it, and there is a trick I've never seen before. It's actually possible to vault off of lava, although it is really difficult to get just right. You have to throw Cappy as you're just over the lava, then dive right away and land right right in front of him. I guess doing this makes the game think you're on the ground when making contact, so you get the vault off of it. Taking damage still happens, but it gives you the extra bounce you need to clear the entirety of the gap. Although the challenge isn't even over, because you have to set up Cappy, do another lava bounce, and then go back over to get the last push up. Let me just say up front, I am very grateful there is a respawn point on this platform, because it would have taken forever otherwise. Well, actually, it still did take forever, because just getting that lava vault at all was so unlikely. One little misposition and it doesn't work. Then even when it did work, I kept messing up the movement after that. I could not make it to the platform. Eventually the time ticked up to a similar amount as the brunchin jump. The torture just seemed like it was never gonna stop in this place. So it was even more relieving when I finally got this one. Oh my god! Oh my god, that took forever! Oh my goodness, how did that even work? I just spent way too much time on that. I'm going to sleep now. This place is killing me, and I have a total of 4 moons so far. Hopefully, after some rest, we can knock more out. Well, there's a Goomba love to do, and there's only one of them this time. But we can make a sick jump off the corn to get up to that ledge. Then, going back to where I was, I saw a crack in the ground, and fixing that gave me a pretty easy moon on the steps. Nice. Moving on, let's hope the next sub-area is not as hard. Well, in this shard's room, it's another of having no Cappy, but there is moon gravity, which I did not expect. It turns out there is nothing behind the start box, but outside of that, this room was very easy, especially compared to the last few. Just do a few ground pound jumps and grab the shards, even if the platforms are much faster. That moon gets got, and now for the hidden moon. It's actually right behind here, dipped into the lava. Man, that guy's probably really hot, but Mario does not care. Okay, now I need to move into the kingdom more. I did a little checking outside just to make sure we weren't missing any other details on the sides like the other cannons. We seem to be good, and I also found Peach chilling on these platforms on the left side of the map, still continuing her journey, and the same goes for the tourist, which we sent here 2 kingdoms ago. We've seen each other at so many places, that's so crazy. And the next place they'll be is somewhere high above. Oh, also before that, I should mention I ran into a Chivarian in the soup, and we're blurring part of that to not change the rating of this channel. Anyway, after all of that is seen, I had to catch the bunny on the cliff. I tried sneaking up on him, and he made a jump that way. But don't worry, I sniped him on the next go-around. It feels good when you can make a shot like that in midair. Next, I jumped my way back over to where the cave entrance is, because I knew there'd be stuff there. There was a moon around the side of this place in the middle of where you'd make that trick jump. But let's turn around and go back to where we were for another moon pipe. This area is honestly nothing to sweat over, despite all of the hot stuff inside. Simply put, the elevator is gone, and that's it. See, unlike the other hard stuff I've done, I actually have a lot of experience doing this. I can't even remember the last time I used the platform to get through. With everything else still in place, it makes getting both moons in here like a break from the challenge. And that break would kind of continue in the cave, because look at that, the Jammin' Toad is inside right at the start. Guess it really is on the same map. Just have to play the epic escape song for him to give us a moon. Don't blame him, because that tune really is worth a reward. Okay, so let's go back and test our luck in the slots room. But the change this time is that we're in freezing water. This means moving is slower, and we are essentially on a timer for getting the 5 moons to pop up. It's difficult to do the usual setup with this, and I definitely failed that once, but you do still have enough time to slow it down a little bit and get everything just right. Those ones can never be too bad. Now let's go a little bit into town and find ourselves on top of this building where another lantern sits. This one is much less complicated than the other, however, there is no fire fire bro to light this one. There is a piranha plant spitting fire at us from these rocks, and with setting up the angle just right, we can knock it into the torch with Cappy lighting it up. Who would have thought a somewhat simple moon would come from that? And next up, I came over to capture a pan bro here because I did see a certain thing off on one of the islands that we have to get to. Actually, before we get there, I'm just gonna take a look at this hint art, which we'll set up in a previous kingdom. But to the moon that's over here, we have to bring a pan bro to it because there's some cheese rocks on one of the islands. The issue is there's no way for one of these bros to jump that far and get onto it to break all of them. So what I tried was getting onto the posts, aiming towards the island, and then jumping off while shaking to throw a lot of pans. This could break some of them, but not nearly enough. At least I could make a far jump back over to the post to get back up to where I was without resetting anything. Then I just had to keep doing this over and over and over again while being very careful to not hit the lava. I really did not want to lose all of this progress after breaking so many. After so much time of going back and forth, I was able to hit just the right spot on the cheese to break just enough, and did the ground pound to finally get that moon. Alright, I think I'm in the mood for something a little easier now, so let's make this jump to the forks room. The theme with going through this is we have to make a few jumps ourselves without as much assistance. There are some parts in here that take a little bit of planning to get up to the next section, but at a certain point, the forks return and we can capture them around the side to get up to the secret platform, and then jump back around to get to the top. But that's not as high as we can go, because there is also a trick jump that can be done to make it up to the highest pink rock. I used to be really bad at doing that, but I have definitely improved since then. So we can get the moon at the top of there, and then the other one back down behind the exit door. Good to get that done, and then back outside right here is a golden turnip. This is going to be interesting, because we have to get this thing off a very small space and take it back to town. I tried throwing it onto these small posts in the lava here, but that wasn't going to work. They just bounce off. So I tried tossing it up here and having it land on this rock above the door, and surprisingly, I actually was able to stick it. Okay, perfect. And now I just have to get up there myself, grab the thing, and go for it. If we just jump this way, we can land on the posts. Now we just slowly jump our way back across, get to the other side, and realize that we're cooked because we didn't activate the invisible blocks yet. But hold on, I tried dropping the turnip, and by some miracle, left it on the side, so I could quickly activate the blocks that I needed before going back to pick it up again. And after slowly moving all the way across and carefully getting up, we got the turnip back and put it in the pot. By the way, that was recipe number 1. That was the basic. It says a lot. And next, I couldn't shake the feeling of checking all of the cannons, so I got in this one and blasted off all the way to yet another island with a torch on it. Oh great, here we go again. Well, we got this lit up, and now I just have to jump over to the edge. If we make it far enough and time it just right, we can capture this guy to get our safety back. But unlike the others we've done so far, this is a 2 flames moon, so we still have to light another. I had seen it back at the beginning, but I had no idea how to light it. It seemed like the lava bubble was the way, but how the heck do you jump high enough? Well, it just so happens that they actually jump higher when going uphill, so we just need some kind of slope down here, and there's a kind of one right on the edge of this. So I went up to it and gave it a shot. Whoa, I did not think it was gonna work that well. I got hyped on that one, and it looked awesome. Great feeling to get that moon. I then went back over to where I was in the kingdom and went down to where the cheese was. We got a sub area right here involving a lot of cheese. It's a small room, so not too much to talk about inside. The main moon was inside some blocks on the edge, and all of the shards were in a little harder to reach places. Although I did do some extra work in the whole thing as I was going through, because by the time I was done, I cleared the entire thing. Now we can actually see what this room looks like in its basic structure. And next up, we have a couple of moons around the path to the plateau, like one in a crate that was moved to underneath the secret compartment. Now we can land on the box pretty easily and break it to spawn the moon, although getting back out with 3 hits is not so simple. So I'm gonna need more of those, and while I can't get 10,000 coins to buy a life apart, I can just go back here, because if you remember from this sub-area, let's just get this heart and peace out. And now if we break the crate, after the cutscene plays, we have even more hits to spare, and it's just enough to get back to the platform for safety. And then we just grab the new moon on top of the building. Nothing to it. There's also nothing to this one, because you see over here, this wall might look very blank, but trust me, the door still exists. And inside is a bunch of tanks and fire bros surrounding the chest. If only they could actually aim and do some damage, instead of just looking intimidating. And now let's go back out and keep the journey going with another sub-area, the one with the lava bubbles. Honestly, I was expecting another situation where the captures just got removed, but no, it's an entirely new challenge. So there's a bunch of small moving platforms that need to be jumped to. It does start off pretty easy, just requiring some good timing to get through, and there's even a break up ahead with this platform holding the purple coins. But then we get back in the capture and have to very carefully make the next few jumps. It is so easy to mistime one of these and fall. Also, you are gonna have to just sit and wait a lot of the time for these cycles to line up. It makes going through the whole thing even more tedious. One thing I'm grateful for is that you don't actually have to move when you're settled into the lava, but that leads to moments where you just slip out during a jump. It took quite a few tries to get the ending part right, and once I made it in, I still had to do one more jump to the last platform. As soon as it lines up just right, I could finally make the move into there, and then we would sail through the air all the way across the entire course to the moon at the back. Then we fly all the way back over and get the main moon on the platform. All of that was quite stressful. Then we can do some more out here that are less stressful, like this one, which is the new Under the Meat Plateau moon. There's a new Soul Pile moon, which is hidden right here all the way at the top, and then I noticed something. I had died a lot in this kingdom already, and my coins ran out fast, but at this moment, I did have 101 I could spend, so I was like, yeah, I'll just buy the moon in the shop while I have the chance. Now that's taken care of, let's go back up and enter the Meat Plateau sub-area, taking us to the spinning gear place. The torches are obviously now in much harder to reach spots and require some good throws with the fireballs. Behind the start, a far shot needed to get one behind here and another under this gear, which is just hard to see. And none of it is that bad though, and it's pretty simple to make progress through here. We can also find one moon here in a legendary hide-and-seek spot, and by the time we get to the top, we can light all of the torches and grab the other secret moon of this place. And now let's go to another sub-area that we can jump to, except this one is a bit harder because it's spinning athletics. Everything spins much faster, and you have to make farther jumps to get through. Well, shortly along the way, we have the Notes moon to get. It's a bit tricky to get all of these because we have to spin around the circle like usual and then jump down to get the rest of them. You kind of have to figure out a good route to make this work. There's too many far jumps that might have to be done, and even if you do everything right, the spinies might get in the way and ruin everything. I'll admit that I wasn't even here for that long, but I was getting pretty mad by what was happening. It felt like I was getting very unlucky with how everything was playing out. But even with an attempt where I got very close to the end of the timer and still hit a spiny, I was able to spawn the moon. Cool, now I just need to be very careful to not die on the way up. Thankfully, I didn't have to worry about that. And now I need to reach the end of the course, but also grab the purples along the way. Unfortunately, the way the platforms were set up, it seemed like there was no way for this to work without dying. And it took a couple tries to get all of them while I just had to accept my fate, but once I got all of them, I could continue my platforming to reach the end. It was a little scary making it across, but I felt pretty comfortable, and it wasn't so bad. Even when I got to the end and realized I had to do this last section, I played it a little risky going across, but somehow it worked great. Let's take a break from those areas for 1 second and do more all the way in the back on the painting island. First things first, we can find the 2D pipe greeting us to a lot of hammer bros down here, which are nearly nearly impossible to dodge. Then through the other pipe, this platform doesn't go very far. So instead, we have to make a cool jump. We make a cool jump to get on the block and hop the rest of the way over. It's a little tricky, but once done, we're in the clear for that moon. And now I want to try something by going through the mushroom painting. So back when I beat this kingdom, I learned from the hint toad the last seed would be up here, and I had to get it to the mainland to plant it. And now they removed the invisible barrier to make that possible, thank goodness. But this jump is not free, even without the seed in hand. In this case, you have to jump off in a way that you can angle yourself towards the mainland and chuck it. But you can't just throw the seed anywhere, because if it hits the fence, it gets knocked off. So you have to throw it right through the gap so it stays on, and then also finish the jump yourself. Getting both of those just right on the same attempt is a lot harder than it looks. But what was nice was that there were coins around this tree, so as long as I collected them, I wouldn't actually be losing them with each failed try, which is good because there were a lot of those. However, I did eventually find the perfect angle that made throwing the seed more consistent, and it was only a matter of time before I made it myself. Now we just need to take it all the way up to the pot that I found inside the boxes a long while back. So it has been planted, and a good time jump forward, we can get this and nearly finish off this kingdom entirely. But there will still be more later. For now, let's get back to Luncheon. Once I returned, I realized I had to get the cracks moon indicated by this, but I think I could safely predict that they were not all gonna be on this island anymore. They were gonna be all over the kingdom now, so I had to get crackin'. Wow, that was terrible. The issue is, these things are all over the place, and not all of them necessarily contribute to the 6 you need for that moon. It only counts if you push it and nothing else pops out. No coins, no hearts, nothing. That is what you want. Well, I did find a few of these that I was looking for, but there is no telling where the rest would end up. I spent so long on this, I found a couple random moons along the way while I was working on it. Like, I just so happened to spot this glowing thing on the steep wall over here that would have been very easy to miss. In search of the other cracks, I also ventured to the back of the map finally, and did find some other easy moons around. There was a simple spot on the stairs as I was making my way up the mountain. Then in that section before blasting to the big pot was the last golden turnip chilling out. It seems like we're really far away back here, but it's not so bad. All we have to do is jump around and make a very far throw over this whole cliff and get it down to the other section. From here, we can just take a normal golden turnip 3 path to get it back to the pot. That is some movement I feel pretty comfortable with. Then I couldn't shake the feeling of finding these cracks because there was still one that eluded me. It seemed like I looked everywhere in this place with flat ground that might need a little fixing. I ran around everywhere without warping or dying or anything for a whole 10 minutes. I really didn't think it would be that hard to find. Ultimately, I decided to move on before getting the last one, and maybe it would find me while going for other moons. Well, I went back to where I was and actually did go to the big pot. I was able to get the last 3 purples up here, which actually wasn't so simple because the edge of this thing got a little weird. But there was a simple moon on the handle of this, which I'm honestly surprised was not utilized in vanilla. And now let's do the notes moon with the lava bubble. You have less time with this one, and the newly formed hills make it a bit harder. The depth perception when trying to jump to these kind of throws you off in some ways. After trying it a few times though, it became pretty simple. These jumps weren't too bad to get down. And now I knew I had to get the diving from the big pot moon, but I started questioning what to do with the NPC there. I don't know, I thought I'd try to make it to the other pot first. No, I didn't even get close. But I lit this torch again by accident. There's another method, I suppose. We'll try that again later. For now, I'm really in the mood for torturing myself again, so how about we go to the back of the mountain and try Timer Challenge 3. It's been a minute since I've done one of these. This one didn't look too bad on the surface. There were many more circle platforms that spawned in, and I had to tilt them all in a way to get up to the top without using Cappy. This was pretty difficult because some of the jumps had to be set up just right, and it all felt really slow. After a lot of trial and error, I was able to make it to the top of this section, section, but I was stumped. I didn't know where to go, or where the key was, or how to get to it. It turns out the key is actually a little higher up, and there's no more circle platforms to get there. But before going back to finish that, I did take a break and did one last search around the entire kingdom to find the cracks, and it turns out the one I was missing was hiding behind the pot that I had to jump into. What do you know? Maybe I should have actually gone for it back then. Well, whatever. Now I know where that one is, and I can just run through to collect the rest of them to finally spawn in the moon over at the island. Also, when going back to continue the timer challenge, I got the moon under the finger. But back to this whole timer thing. I knew I had some stuff to figure out, because we have to get all the way to the top by the cannon to grab the key. However, there seems to be no way to do that without having Cappy. We can't capture any forks to get up there, and it seems like all of these jumps are too high to make in this style. So I didn't know what I was gonna do for a while. Although I figured that it would be faster to get to this point by just running up the mountain, because these circle platforms gave me way more trouble than it was worth. I had so many tries of learning the route of how to get up here, and I just had to figure out the last step. Well, I had tried damage boosting up this slope in a certain spot, but apparently I was in the wrong area. If you burn yourself on the left, Mario will actually run up this section while on fire and can jump up here. So if we do everything just right, we can hopefully get the key and fall back down before the moon disappears. But the thing is, even after figuring out all the steps, it took forever before I could finally make it all work. There are so many close and quick jumps that you have to do, and not only that, there's a little bit of a luck element since this platform needs to be blue side up when getting to it. If not, you're screwed. Then sometimes everything would go right and then the damage boosting just wouldn't work. I can't even count how many times Mario did some stupid thing making it so that I fell back down. This kingdom just could not stop throwing these brutal challenges at me. It just kept going and going with so many hours spent on very specific things. However, it can never take away my persistence. If you just keep trying, eventually you will find success. And sometimes, like this, success comes at you by only milliseconds. Look at how close that was. Thank goodness, I am ready to be done with that forever. But why not keep this train going and see if Koopa freerunning would be another one of these torture challenges? Well, the way this one works is that the finish has not moved at all, but Mario is nowhere to be found on the screen because once starting, we see that he actually spawned all the way back at the Odyssey, so there's a bit of a longer path to go through. We have to run through the beginning of the kingdom and get up these buildings. Then to reach the back as fast as possible, actually make the jump around the side of the mountain to just get to where you would start normally. This jump is something that over time has gotten a lot easier for players. And now we need to get up to this roof, and even without the torches here, this jump is still possible, but just barely with a triple jump. Then we just do the normal movement to get all the way to the top with enough time left. And this actually didn't take that long, even for the Master Cup, because I feel like this race is something that seems like it would be another brutal thing. But don't underestimate how slow those Koopas will run up the mountain. They take their sweet time on that. You do have to move pretty swiftly to get all the way up there in time, but it's not so tight that you're gonna end up pulling your hair out by the end of it. Even just about 3 tries in, I was able to barely beat the gold Koopa. Since I had finished up with everything back here, I thought I should do what I didn't finish before and take the lava bubble back up to the big pot. Because remember how there were no torches by the tall roof? Yeah, we've gotta find them and light them again. This is the last moon for that, I promise. One of them is very easy, as we just jump from the big pot and soar down to right here. Although the other is a bit more complicated. It's right here on the steps on your way to the peak. But looking over the edge in the big pot, we see that there's not really a good angle to jump into this thing. It's not gonna work if we do a normal jump. We need some curve, and we can get that curve by instead dashing out of the lava. This lets us move more horizontally while in the air and lets us get a better angle, but it is quite difficult to aim since we can't really see where we're going when we jump. A pretty blind setup, but after a few few good attempts on this, I was able to stick it and light that guy. And now there is the last moon in the back of the kingdom. And one more involving the big pot, which is diving from above. And I totally overestimated how hard that would be because I landed it first try. But there was a bit more difficulty in the sense that it spawned a little higher. Just gotta utilize this cliff to get up there now. Okay, now it's time to spend money in the shop since now we can afford what we need. First, I will purchase the mechanic outfit and speak to this robot, which I saw earlier but was unable to help. And now I can help because seeing a repairman means he is not broken anymore. And I will also spend all of the purple coins I found on everything, including one of my favorite outfits, the Chef Boy. Just call me Chef Boy 03. We can use this for one of my favorite sub-areas, which now has a pretty interesting challenge. To get the lava bubbles to the pots, we have to kind of platform with the capture and make sure that he lands perfectly in the holes as not to make him disappear. This is one that I really liked. There's a good challenge here because it requires patience and concentration to get right, but it doesn't go on for so long that it becomes frustrating. We got through with the first moon after not too long, and then while going the other way, it mainly has us using the hot tomatoes to get over all of these blocks. And for the most part, it's a pretty smooth ride to get all the way to the end and hop into the last pot. A cool sub-area here. Nice work, guys. To finish up this place, I just had to find Hat and Seek, which I did not happen to run into earlier. And it appears the reason I missed it is because the fork housing the hat was right here with the rest of the group completely blending in. I never suspected anything out of it, but there you go. So there's just one more to get, and yes, it's the one I intentionally walked past earlier without mentioning at all, because you gotta save the hardest for last, and there have been a lot of people telling me that this is the hardest in the whole game. I've been nervous to get to this. So what is it? Another Notes Moon? How can that be hard? Well, this is the Notes Moon usually in the lava, and that means there's a lot of them. Like, a lot. So what they did is they spread them out across the entire kingdom. There's notes placed by the Odyssey, by the painting platform, and everywhere in between. The town, the cliffs, the meat plateau, everywhere. If you need an idea of how many there are and how far apart these are all placed, the timer for the notes goes on for almost 4 minutes. That long in a Kaizo game, you know it's ridiculous. It's crazy to me that this was even thought of, because there's so many here that you first need to find where all of them are, if that's even realistic, and then figure out how to get all of them in one trip. But even finding them in the first place is a challenge, because one of them is in a crazy spot. Remember that torch we jumped to from the big pot on the cliffside? There's a note up there, and it's kind of far up the cliff with no way to jump up to it. How do we get there? We have to use another glitch. It involves this Goomba, in fact. We have to walk him over to the base of this, and then by starting on a slope and mashing the run button, the Goomba will just kind of slide up the whole thing. And it does allow us to reach the torch, so even before we start, we have to set up the Goomba at the base of this cliff. Thankfully, he is just about the only capture that won't despawn. Then we run over to start the moon and follow a route if you can put one together. And you know what? I gotta give a shout out to Gorgonim, because I did have to watch how he did it, and I ended up using that route. But let me just say, that really did not make things any easier. I still had to execute all of the movement while going around the entire kingdom. You gotta get everything in just the right order and make sure that you are always moving fast enough to keep pace. Same issue with the Bound Bowl Moon. You have to beat the clock that goes on for multiple minutes, so you have to play perfectly for so long, and if you mess up, you have to start over. Another thing that really got my blood boiling is if I start the timer but mess up right at the beginning and know I won't be able to go all the way, I can either sit there for 4 minutes and wait for the timer to finish, or I can die to make it stop, but that means I have to go back over and grab a Goomba to set him up again. Goes without saying, one attempt on this thing takes a long time, but since I had this strategy in mind, I was able to get pretty far in my attempts eventually. I still spent a lot of time time on this, but it's not like you have to move at world record pace. And with the timer being so long, you can get somewhat close to the end with enough tries. However, getting to the last bit of it and messing up feels very demoralizing. What the heck happened here after all that? But I knew I was getting close, and it would be very satisfying once done. So I think I'm just gonna let this play out, and you can see how it goes. Enjoy. I can't believe I actually did it. I even had some screw-ups in there, but I made it with just enough time. This whole kingdom has really challenged what I can mentally withstand in gaming, and I can't believe it's finally over. I'm gonna go celebrate right now and not think about what I'm gonna have to do next time. That's for the next video, and hopefully it doesn't take me as long to get to that. But for now, that is all I got. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care, everyone!